I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about things from my own perspective as a computer scientist in Glasgow and try and draw from some of that, what's happening in app design and analytics in the area of future cities. And I think in a problem that's kind of happening there that has parallels in what's happened in city design in the kind of future cities rhetorical kind of way. For a long time, I've been doing apps, often games, as a vehicle for different types of computer science research. This one used the Wi-Fi that was kind of closed or not closed as resources around the world, really, as a basis for what we called a seamful game, and let us explore how to kind of map out what was happening in Wi-Fi in a city. We had 400,000 people use that. As a result of that, we got lots of log data and started to get into the analytics of the data, what's coming out of there. And there's a type of an analysis you can get into which is bridging different data types. Like we've got information on where cameras are, information on what happens on people's phone, and we can stitch that together to find video sequences of particular interactions between people based on what we know about those things. Working with some statisticians in Warwick and sort of formalists in Glasgow, we're also trying to find ways to cluster together temporal patterns of what people do and where they go in the city, so as to kind of understand and model things in a more abstract way, but in terms of temporal patterns, not just the min of this or the max of this, but something kind of more deeper. The real experts of this are people like Mike Batty down in London, who have focused on urban analytics in a kind of a grand scale, very mathematical kind of way. And of course, they're coming out with like all kinds of data, which you can see exemplified by little kind of pie charts on the right, as well as the kind of beautiful visualizations. There's a nice book by Pecha and Uberti, I'll give the fuller reference to you soon, about what's kind of going on. The thing is, all that kind of statistical analysis, all these things end up in these really tedious dashboards that nobody cares about, with metrics that are really incredibly boring. Like, I don't care how many million riders there are altogether in the year. I don't care that the Spring Street sweeping was completed on the May 28th. And there's something else, there's like an odd parallel I want to try and make here. I'm still trying to kind of shape up. The touted early examples of future cities. Cisco put a pile of money into basically making this new area in Korea with all these kind of features you can see described that nobody wants to live in. It's incredibly efficient, it's incredibly tedious. It's incredibly sterile. Similar, kind of here's another one of these kind of great examples. This kind of new city founded with this incredible sort of new features of solar energy use and also work on solar energy that nobody really wants to live in because it's just really boring. And there's another kind of odd example, a slightly different one, which actually is an odd echo to what's happening very close to here. So Rio had sort of this early sort of landmark thing of this massive video wall connected to these video sort of feeds all across the city. And basically they used it, or criticism was anyway, that they used it to basically control public demonstrations and poor getting into rich neighborhoods rather than actually sort of handling, supporting more general use. So there's this way in which a lot of this kind of grand technology, but I think somehow also the analytics of future cities is starting to be used on control and management by central authorities and big business. And it's not actually fitting with the needs of individuals, of everyday citizens. What does optimizing overall traffic flow in the city mean to the average guy? Compare it with the kind of stuff you can see with my recently bashed up Apple Watch, and how popular this is for individuals to do a very specific kind of analytics they do themselves. Now these are often, there's an issue here, it's often for the wealthy, worried well, expensive devices, and often in a very kind of competitive kind of way. I'd flag a project I'm involved in, which is basically a health or fitness app for basically football fans who can drink their own age in pints, and who basically wouldn't go near a gym or get into any competitive kind of lycra type situation if, for anything. And so there's this alternative. You can get similar kind of data on where they go, the activity they do, but in a very different kind of form. There's another project, I'm not involved in this, which uses a very familiar type of interaction, web search, so that people in Santander and now in Rostock can do a web search to find out where there's actually a car park space free very close to their destination, their workplace. So it's not about traffic flows, it's about where they actually are going to be. And also comparing the 3 megabits of data that comes out every minute from Glasgow's traffic flows sensors and is not used for anything. Here's this thing that used data from people's phones, Waze, a company recently bought by Apple, by Google, I should say, where people would share their phone positions so as to kind of get this aggregate kind of data. And there's incredible sort of analysis you can do with that. Here's some census data, again, pointing out a slightly dark side from this great book, actually. one of the kind of main uses that have been highlighted as potential from this kind of census data is where to live so that you can stay within your own ethnic group and avoid people you don't want to live nearby with a different skin color to you. Yeah, actually, that's going to happen, isn't it? I'm afraid to say. So here's this kind of like contrast from this kind of city authoritarian kind of view. Often it's like you hear what the city council here has kind of had this massive slab of money to improve public services using the kind of things we kind of see down here. Other cities are doing the same thing. Like Chicago apparently is the best city in the world at predicting pest outbreaks. But compare this to what I think might be sort of more relevant to the individual. How can I get to work more efficiently today? I'm going to leave in 10 minutes. What's the route I should take right now? You know, are these incompatible in some way? I know which is getting the big money though, especially from kind of city authorities. And so there's something here about trying to sort of bridge between these things. To want to get this big data, fit individuals' lives in good ways with things like app design or other kind of systems like that, so you can get the data to use in the kind of global scale for the city, but in these kind of multiple different apps and services and sources that fit with individuals' many and different lives. So to get big data and big services, I'm kind of trying to sort of work this out, is you've got to give something individual back, which means a profusion of different types of apps and services, not one size fit all. You've got to sort of think not just in top down, and bottom up, in some way in which they are actually interdependent in terms of design, but also I think there's something else in analytics and infrastructure too. So just to recap, there's something kind of dark sort of happening inside analytics. There's not much that's kind of really great in the kind of future cities analytics happening, inside computing, but the quantified self is something we can learn from. And think about the kind of global health data you can sort of do from that, combining these types of analysis and different types of design. That's what I'm trying to get to. Thank you.